closing today. Also, Castlewood is closing school at 12 o'clock. Clark is closing at 12:30 today. We also have Dubrook closing at 12:30. Elkton at 12. Enemy Swim is closed today. Florence is closing at 12:15 for today. Hamlin closing at 12:30. Henry, the village, they are closing at 12:30 today. So you may want to be a little safe, and if you're thinking things are going to get worse for this afternoon, which they will, that wind is going to gust up to 60 miles an hour, and be aware of that. So just a heads up on that deal. And
drive safe.
The high wind warning in effect until 6 a.m. tomorrow, and overcast with a little bit of drizzle out there. 29 degrees here at the studio. So we have Jordan Bethke here with us from Dakota Fishtails. Good morning, Jordan. How you doing?
Good morning. Good morning. Doing good. Like I said, this morning I was coming in here and the roads are slick.
Okay. So folks will want to be a little extra cautious. Let's you and I talk about what you do. Dakota Fishtails, you're a guide service.
So I'm a guide service around, I say I live in the Henry area, but I grew up in the Clark area there, and been fishing pretty much since I was a little kid and stuff like that. And I do a little farming with my dad in the summertime. So, the summer guiding isn't so crazy stressful but once winter starts rolling around and I start ice fishing, and I run some snow bear trips in the wintertime here. And like I said, I have a guide service, and I'm located out of Henry.
All right. The ice, you've been out on it so far, not driving anything on it, obviously.
Well, not yet, but I have heard a few guys that are getting a little antsy, and like I said, I'd like to come in here and talk about the ice conditions and the safety of, just, from early ice to, guys venturing out, taking their ice castles, or just taking their first time taking their ATV out on the ice. It's just, I was telling you earlier before we went live here, there was the snow cover affects some of these lakes a lot. When you get that snow blowing on the lake and it starts building those drifts, it's basically like a little blanket on that ice, right? It's just, you drill one hole in that little snowbank, say it's 3 inches, and then you go over to that bare hard ice over there and it's literally like 6 inches. So, just be careful with that, like not all the ice is even. Like, I feel like some people think, they go on Facebook or they go on Ice Fishing South Dakota and they see these guys. They're like, oh yeah, the ice here is 4 inches. I'm over here, the ice is 3.5. Well, I found 7 over here. It's like, yeah, use that as a guideline, but like always, like, I like to go check things out for myself. Like that's like, take a buddy with you. There's safety things like ice picks, a rope. Like I said, a buddy is like my biggest thing. I like to go fishing with a buddy, and who doesn't? It's like,
sure,
go with a buddy, and it's just like, and sometimes if you take a little bit bigger buddy, you send him out first. Early ice. That's another little pointer there.
That'd be you, Steve.
Yeah. Luckily for me, I'm a littler guy, so I don't have trouble finding those friends that I can send out first.
Yeah.
But like I said, like a spud bar is very essential early ice.
Spud bar.
Yeah, a spud bar is like a big chisel. You go out there. Obviously, I'm not very big, 5'8", 145, 150. And my thing is I do about 3. If I can whack that 3 times and that spud bar don't go through, I'm feeling like I can keep walking. And that's when I'm first going out checking the ice. I'm whack. Like I said, a little heavier set guy, he might want to do 4 or 5 whacks with that little spud bar, just to be a little bit safer. Yeah. But like I said, spud bar, they got these safety picks that go around your neck. Okay. And say you fall in, at least you can climb out. And like I said, then you got your buddy with you. Have a rope, get out. I mean, just I know everyone wants to get out fishing. I mean, I'm the first one. I always want to be the first one on ice. Don't get me wrong, but some days it ain't worth getting cold. There's going to be plenty of ice fishing left, and it's just starting. And I just can't stress enough about being safe. I mean, no fish is worth it. I mean,
You had talked about a float suit. Is that something new? Tell me, what are those?
well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily something new. It's been around for, I would say 4 or 5 years, but they just keep making it a little bit better and better. I actually had a buddy, I won't say his name, but I'm sure if he's listening, he knows what I'm talking about. He actually got to try that suit out last year. He actually fell in with, he was on a snowmobile, he fell in, and, I got the story from him, and he said his snowmobile went in, and he said he popped up like a bobber. He said he was floating, and he said he was barely even wet. He said he crawled right out of the ice. Where he fell in was, 10 inches. Another instance, it was like 10 inches. All of a sudden, he'd been out there before. All of a sudden, boom, falls in. He'd been fishing. He's a very avid fisherman, knows what he's doing. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie pro. You just can't mess with.
Sure.
It's just one of those things. You just got to be safe. But anyways, he falls in. Kyle, or excuse me, I wasn't going to say his name. He falls in. He falls in.
There's a lot of Kyles.
Yeah, there. Yeah. Anyway, so he falls in. He said he pops up like a bobber. He said he gets out, and he realizes, it's not very deep. He goes back in with his float suit on, and he grabs all his electronics and gets all his electronics and gets it back out. Yeah. And they end up recovering the snowmobile, and you end up being safe and dry. And it's just, for instance, one of those deals. That float suit literally probably, would I say it probably saved his life? Probably, yeah. It kept him dry from getting. He literally felt dry enough that he could jump back down in the water to get his electronics. So I thought that was pretty amazing, for a float suit technology. So yeah.
But he knew the depth of the water and knew that it wasn't too deep. So
well, obviously, another key thing is they have good mapping. Stuff like that is essential for, I would say, fishing, just fishing in general. If you're an avid fisherman, obviously mapping is a key thing. If you're finding points, you're finding structure, so people don't realize too, like road beds and stuff, sometimes, you get that sunshine, not so much early ice, but like late ice conditions, that sunshine will shine through that ice, hit those rocks, bounce off, and it starts eating the ice from the bottom, makes it a little bit softer too. Mm-hmm. So you got like rock points and stuff like that. It'll be a little bit weaker ice than if you go out on something that's like a sandy bottom or something that's snow covered or something like that. So,
Steve, you got any ice fishing questions?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know that safety is really important, but I think people they push it a lot, So I don't know. It's just kind of just those reminders I think are the most important. But is there a time where it's just, I don't know, when it's too cold, or it's just maybe it's not worth it, or I don't know, because they're pretty insulated now, so I don't know.
Well, that's a pretty open question, because I guess that depends what kind of fisherman you ask. Is it ever too cold to go fishing? Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I mean, obviously, like I said, we've come a long ways in the last 10 years between ice shacks and snow bears, like this, like I said, I run these snow bear trips. It's awesome. You get, by the time you get 8 to 10 inches, I'm running those snow bears every day. These guys, the coldest part of their day is basically getting out of their pickup or vehicle, getting into my snow bear, and it's warmed up, ready to go, 70 degrees in there. I got all the rods, bait, tackle, everything. We're ready to rock and roll. We're on the lake. We go fish. We drill a hole. We're looking for fish, and it's 70 degrees in there. Mm-hmm. Unless you have to go outside and take a leak or something. Yep. But so when you're talking about cold, Steve, I don't know if it's ever too cold to go fishing in the snow bear. Yeah. But, like early ice, they have these thermal shacks now. You're spending $300-400 on these thermal shacks, and they hold the heat in nice. You got these little heaters and stuff like that. Makes it way more enjoyable to go out ice fishing. And I feel like the last 10 years, I'm not saying I've been around forever, but I've been fishing for, a lot of my life. And I've seen the change from, from the Vexlar, we just had these flashers, and I know a lot of guys that can relate these flashers, that was like, you wouldn't leave home if you would go fishing and all of a sudden you got to the lake and you had your minnows, your shack, and your auger, and you forgot your Vexlar. You're turning back around and you were going to get that fish finder because you couldn't fish without that. Even though you had your everything else. It was like, and nowadays, now it's the live scope. Now we got this live scope, this technology that, you drill a hole and you can see 100 feet, sometimes a little bit farther. You spin around a circle, you can see these fish moving. And, it is absolutely crazy how far the technology has come. And it just makes fishing a lot easier for everyone to do. And so, like you said, being out in the cold, I mean, these guys camp out on the ice all weekend, the ice castles and stuff like that. And, that's another, safety thing. Check the weather. Some of these guys get, snowed in. We're going to have a lot of snow this year, it looks like, and, so, I mean, yeah, never being too cold for fishing. I don't know about that. I mean,
and you mentioned safety and heaters. You got to make sure you have proper ventilation.
Yes. I mean, yeah, when you're in your ice shack, I mean, most guys run those propane heaters. I mean, for the most part, they're not like airtight, but they do have those vents up top, in those shacks. You can pull those open if you're starting to get a little lightheaded or starting to get a headache, probably getting too much exposure to that propane and stuff like that. But if you're catching fish and you're going outside and you got some tip ups and you're running back and forth, you're getting exercise and plenty of ventilation, running back and forth there.
So if you're in a popover or just a pop up, you might want to make sure you got usually they have a little window that you can open that is netted, and that allows proper ventilation as well. And if you're going to camp overnight,
yeah, I mean, so I've never really done a lot of ice camping. I have some, some friends that, they like to camp on the weekends. Sometimes it's just, it's free camping on the ice. They set up a cot in there. So, I mean, proper ventilation would probably be very important in that, especially if you're trying to sleep in something like that. If you're trying to camp today on the ice, I would say you would need a lot of ice spikes to drill into the ice with those 60-mile-an-hour winds today. But, like on the ice, I mean, it's always slick. So obviously, like I said, the technology, and you can go to a tackle store and go, like I said, you go down to Runnings here. This is like the selection of ice fishing, everything that a guy could ever want for camping to ice fishing. It's getting pretty phenomenal.
So when you get out there and you start to fish, do you shovel some of that snow off, or do you leave the snow for cover? Or
well, I personally like to leave a little bit of snow there because I feel like I was talking earlier, that snow is like a little bit of a blanket. So like you're sitting there a long time, like keeping your feet on that. It's like, okay, so you think about it this way. Either you put your feet on a block of ice or you put it like on something like a mat on top of that block of ice where your feet is going to get, probably colder on that block of ice than it would be on that. So, I always like and then you use that snow as like insulation to bury around your shack, around the edges to keep it nice and warm.
Yeah, like skirting.
Yeah, basically like a skirt. You can put a skirt on your shack, I guess. Yeah, make it bigger, smaller, whatever you want to do.
All right. Any other advice for the fishermen? You've been out and you've caught a few.
Yeah.
And you don't have to tell me your secret spots, but what have you been catching and what size?
I've been out a few times. Like I said, I've been kind of getting the snowbears and stuff ready, and they're ready to rock and roll now, just waiting on the ice. Like I said, I probably could have been out the last couple of days. It's just the guys doesn't want to force it. But I've been seeing, ice from anywhere. Like I said, I'd drill in a little snowdrift from 3.5 inches, and then I'd find 7 inches. And I've been, the fishing actually has been everywhere I went. I've been catching a few fish, been seeing some fish. Obviously, I fish quite often, so I kind of have my little spots I like to go, early ice, and that's the thing too. Early ice, people will think that they have to walk a quarter mile. They have to walk 2 miles. God, as older I get, I don't want to walk 2 miles. It's just, the fish are going to be up shallower. They're going to be up next to the weed lines. They're going to be up a little bit closer. So, early ice, they're kind of closer to the shore and stuff like that, feeding, following the bait up into the weeds or what weed growth is left and stuff like that. So I just like to fish off the shorelines and, stuff like that, I'm probably not fishing anything over 12 foot right away, early ice, just for safety wise, sometimes, those shallower lakes, they'll freeze up a little bit better. So, you're fishing, we got some sloughs that are 8 foot, I'll start checking out little sloughs first before, obviously these bigger bodies of water. I haven't really made it up north yet, but I do have some buddies up there and some guides that I know up there that, I kind of get some reports from them guys. And I've been hearing there's all 7 inches up on Waubay. I heard there's some ATV traffic and stuff up there too. So, it's getting to be that season. I bet you by this weekend we're going to see a lot of wheeled traffic going around out there, snowmobiles, ATVs, and stuff like that. And people always ask, like we were talking about earlier, like a guideline. Use this as like a recommendation. Like everyone should have their own, like their confidence of like what they feel like when they go out on the ice. Mm-hmm. Some people drive their pickups out, a half-ton pickup when there's 8 to 9, 10 inches of ice and have no problem with it. Other guys are going to wait until there's 12, 15. It's all about who you trust too. Dorian calls me and say, hey, I was out fishing out on Bitter. There's, 10 inches of ice out here, and then all of a sudden you drive out there and there's only 7. It's just one of those things I've always been that guy. I want to check it out for myself. I'll take your information and use it, but I feel early ice, use your own discretion. Use that advice I get. If some of you guys are coming from Nebraska, you're coming from Sioux Falls, you can't just come down here and all of a sudden you check the ice and it's not good enough for you to fish. I get that you're asking, but I just, just be safe when you're coming down here. Fishing, we all love to fish just as much as the next guy. And if you break the rules of the safety and try to push the ice fishing a little bit, sometimes that'll put a little damper on your fishing season.
Right. Common sense.
Yeah. Common sense goes a long ways. It really does. Yeah, it really does.
So are you catching walleye, perch, crappie? What are you catching?
Well, I like to target a lot of walleyes and perch. I've been catching some walleyes and some perch. I haven't really got into chasing the crappies yet. I know they're catching some down south, down on Thompson. There's usually pretty good crappie bite down there. But other than that, like I said, this next couple of days here, wait for this little storm to roll through and roads to clear up. And I think I'll be on the ice pretty much every day after this once I get the snow bears rolling. And I pretty much don't start my guide trips until after Christmas. So I have a good week or so here to hit the ice and really get things checked out, check out the heaves. There'll be heaves forming now with the ice getting thicker and stuff like that. So, pressure ridges, stuff like that, the guys just going to have to watch out for too as we go on. Okay.
Steve, you have any questions?
No, you guys are you covered it. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how to ask questions with your limited amount of broadcasting experience. So, and you have done a few fishing excursions.
A few.
You haven't told any ice fishing stories. But
no, I told you the one about the twins when I put them in the homemade water tank shack, and the wind took it across the lake with the twins in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a windy day like we're going to have today. But Jordan, thank you for coming in. Jordan Bethke with Dakota Fish Tales. If folks want to contact you, they can do so through Facebook or just give you a call or look you up online, right?
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, I have a website too, dakotafishtales.com. There's lodging on there. I got a bunch of lodging in Watertown. Some Airbnbs there. I got some in Henry. There's a hotel in Clark. Team up with the Double P Ranch. They have the loft in Clark too. They have some lodging out there. This is there's lots of options for lodging, lots of places to go fishing up here in this area. So Webster's a good area, Watertown. come up here and fish and be safe. And like I said, if you're looking for a guide or, you want to get on a snowbird trip, go on our webpage or Facebook or give me a call at 605-233-0040.
All right, sounds great. Want to say thanks for coming in, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
That is Jordan Bethke with Dakota Fish Tales on Northeast Radio.